think about, do you really want to be married or do you want a wedding? I knew I was going to marry her. I used to always tell my friends, I don't know if I ever told her this. I said, the woman that will marry me in the courthouse is the one I will marry. She married me in a courthouse. So when she told me she was willing to marry me in the courthouse, that was one of the things I was like, all right, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I was like, okay, cool. You don't want no wedding. You trying to have this union and we trying to build something to grow up in. So do you want that wedding or do you want marriage? That's the same thing. Have you a prom and you keep it moving, you know.
Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. If this is your first time joining us, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. Today on TMC, we have No Filter Life Lessons with Charles and Rachel McNeil.
KFC. We used to both work at KFC. Started off as friends. It was weird because we fell out of communication for a while, and then he emailed me, and so we just started talking and got together then. And it was shortly after. Well, we dated for like a year, and then we got married, and we've been here since 2010 together. So,
wow. How did you guys get from St. Louis to Houston?
I had some legal issues in 2008 and 2005 and 2009. Luckily, all along was gone. And my dad told me that it's time for you to do something. So in May of 2009, one of my friends who was stationed at Fort Hood, he was like, man, you need to just go ahead and leave. So I grabbed a trash bag with some clothes. I left and I've been in Texas ever since. And that was one of the best decisions I made.
Wow. And I didn't even know he was in Texas at the time. My sister actually moved to Dallas area, like the Wiley, Dallas area. And around the time when he emailed me, I remember calling her, and it's so corny. I called her, I was like, oh, the only reason why you moved to Texas is so I could be in love. And she was like, girl, shut up. When she moved down, I came down to visit her and then drove. I think he lived about an hour and a half away. And so then I came and we just kind of connected. So.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. So do you all have children?
We do. We have one boy. His name is Joshua, and he'll be 9 in April.
So that's awesome how you guys reconnected. And now you're in Houston, neighbors on the podcast today. That's awesome.
All right.
Let's talk a little bit about the dating process. You know, how was that for you all?
Beginning, it was distance because she was still in St. Louis. So I was in Copper's Cove at the time. So she would come visit me and then I would fly up there. So we did that for about a year. And I think it was a little bit easier since we
like 7 months.
Yeah. Since we kind of knew each other, so we didn't have to really go through the getting to know you part. Right. Like we was already friends before starting the dating part. You know, I remember, even telling her, like, you remind me of my mom. She's like, well, that's not what I want to. I don't want to hear that. I want you to say that could be more like a partner. So, that was part of our dating part as well. We would go hang out with some mini golf. I remember the first time she came to visit me, she said I played her and told her I didn't know how to cook, and I actually do how to cook. So she hasn't let me forget that since.
And I agree. Like we were genuinely friends when we first met. Like when we were just friends, he would tell me about his girlfriends. I would tell him about my male friends, and we would just like genuinely be. He actually took me on my first date. Like he randomly called me and was like, "Let me take you to the movies." I was like, "Okay." From there, we've genuinely been friends. So I think that did help in us transitioning into a relationship, because even today I would say he's genuinely my best friend. Wow. And so I think that works for us.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I've said that to people before, that Cedric and I were friends and we've known each other way before we started dating. And I think that that's a good foundation to a relationship, because it gives you a long time to get to know each other and to go through some things together, right? Would you say? Mm-hmm. One thing that your marriage, that your relationship has taught the two of you, if you all could share something with anyone, one thing that you've learned from your marriage or your relationship.
I would say for me, and my sister and I was just talking about this, through my relationship with Charles, I learned how to be less independent, because I would admit that I have like a chronic independence. Like I can do it myself. I can get it myself. I know how to make my own money, cook my own food, clean my house. I know how to do all those things. But since we've been together, I think I've learned to trust more, to trust him more. I think as we're both growing, not only as people and as parents, but growing in our faith, I'm learning that it's okay for me to let go of the reins and be interdependent, right? Allow him the space to lead, trust that he can, lead and guide our family. And I think that's one of the biggest things, realizations that I've come to in our marriage.
Yeah, I think for me, what I learned was, so like I said, we knew each other for a while, but I think what I learned and which I knew was that, well, you're still going to keep learning this person, right? Because we evolved and we changed, and I think that was one of our small little conflicts, is that we both were independent people. When I went to the Air Force, I was 17. My parents had to sign a waiver. I was the oldest child. So I'm used to, having to do stuff, having to be a leader and things of that nature. So you got these two, not necessarily opposing, but homogeneous forces or substances, understanding and having to learn that, especially in a marriage, that it's supposed to be a union. So me trying to do everything on my own, that's not gonna work, especially with the way that do have a father president that, hey, you're the man, you're supposed to do this. You got to provide. You got to make sure the lights are on. And then there was a part in our relationship where I was out of work for 9 months, right? And that was hurting me hard, right? Like, man, I'm at the house, I ain't doing nothing. I'm educated, I got this experience, and I had to lean on my wife, and I felt some kind of way about that. But that's what she said. We're supposed to be in this together, and you're not letting me help by. And now thinking about it and saying it out loud, it's selfish of me to believe that, hey, you're in a relationship with this person and you're not comfortable enough to let them help.
I definitely agree with that time in our relationship, because it was hard. Because I know for him, like, he learned and he takes that role serious to be a protector and a provider, right? And so when that especially the providing aspect was gone, I could see it was hard, and it was a struggle for us to communicate, right? Because I think, again, being so independent, you learn to take care of things. Like, if it's a problem, fix it, right? Find a way to work it out, right? Find a way to make it happen. But we were doing that in silos. And so it really took learning, right? And talking and being willing. Really, I'll take it back to trust, because even though we've been friends, I mean, there is a level of vulnerability when you are kind of like, a leader, perfectionist. He's the oldest, I'm the second oldest of 4. So being up there where, okay, if it's a problem, figure it out, and not ever really learning how to lean on somebody else and to trust that they're not gonna let you fall.
Especially when, like I said, I think most of when a male is present, like, I got to provide. And when we think of provider being there, some of us are thinking financial. And so my dad, that's all I see my dad do is work. Like right now, if you ask me to wager everything, I'll call he either at work or just left work or about to go to work. More than likely. And that's what I saw. So I believe that's what a man's supposed to do. That's what a man do, is go to work and make sure your family got everything they need, everything they want.
Wow. And I thank you all for sharing that, because there's definitely, we go as couples, as married couples, we go through transition. And you said something, Rachel, you talked about that vulnerability and allowing yourself to be vulnerable with the person that you are in relationship with and allowing them to help you. I heard you all say that word over and over again, allowing them in. And sometimes without even knowing it, just because, like you said, the way we're built, we could be moving in and about in a relationship and not allowing the other person in to help us, or allowing ourselves to be vulnerable to say we need that help. And that could present challenges. And I'm so thankful that you all were able to navigate that. And thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, I want to kind of just touch on that a little bit more, because a lot of times that can be a breaker to a relationship. Rachel, what did you do to affirm your husband that, baby is going to be all right? What was some of those times like?
Yeah, I don't think I shared this earlier, but my background is in psychology and counseling. I own a private practice now in counseling. And so for me, a lot of my own personal healing was talking about the hard stuff, right? And so I think talking to him, like trying to encourage him to say, like, okay, talk to me. Like, I can see something is wrong, but you're not talking. And I think I tried to balance, like, trying to shake and force him to talk with, let me just give him space. And when he's ready to talk, he'll do that. Hopefully I did a decent job of that, and just being willing to say, okay, I'm here and I'm present whenever you're ready. Right. And so just kind of, like I said, trying to give him his space, but then trying to say, hey, you still do have somebody here with
Right.
you.
Okay, so one of the first things you did is to, like, say you gave him space.
Mhm.
Okay, that's good. So what else?
One of the things that also happened, so I believe that, honestly, to tell you the truth, I believe we're actually probably recently, within the past few years, really going to be, I got to be honest. I'll give you an example. So I got a big interview coming up that I'm excited for. And I literally told my wife, I'm scared to do the interview. I'm nervous. I don't know why. I'm qualified with it. And I'm more vulnerable to say when I'm afraid, when I feel like, I'm just telling her my raw emotions and putting them out there instead of trying to put on this, hey, I got big shoulders. I'm a very big dude. I can't be out here being soft like that. I got to get out there and do it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know about this one,
And I would say it's taken us years to get here. So we're almost like 12 years married. And this is like within the last maybe 5 or so years that we have gotten to the point of truly being vulnerable with one another. So, and I think it's taken time to like give space, right? Not to, sometimes I can be a pursuer. Like if it's something wrong, let's fix it. Like, let's do it right now. And sometimes he's a withdrawer, right? So like, I'm not ready to talk, so leave me alone. And so it's taken this time to learn that about one another, and be able to say, okay, well, not right now. So let me give him his space. And when he's ready, 9 times out of 10, he'll show up, he'll come and say, okay, I'm ready to talk about it. And he'll say those things, and then I can hear him and we just have a conversation.
How did you all get there? Because you say 12 years, it took at least 5 years ago. And there's marriages, there's people who've been married over 20 years. And there's people that still haven't got that concept. So what was this? Maybe a book you read or something happened or event, or maybe you guys talked to someone. What was that moment? Or did it happen accidentally? I mean, what was that moment when?
I can't remember the moment. The moment was when Mike Brown died. We was coming from his church in Dickinson, Texas.
Okay.
So this is the first time I cried in church. Right? I'm talking like full blown. And I was really, and I'm usually one of the people like, hey, they ain't really got nothing to do with it. Even though Mike Brown died in the area where I used to go to school. I used to walk in the area, ride bikes over there. So, and I was like, man, what can I do to help influence the life of young African-American males specifically? I say everybody else don't matter, but this group specifically. And I remember that really being on my heart. And I remember telling her that I even remember that was the first day I ever journaled. Right. Actually, to this day, that was the only journal entry I ever made, other than this men's mental health journal she got. I journaled in that, but that was when I think that started to be the breakthrough. And the other breakthrough came when she strongly encouraged me to go to therapy. Part of it was because I run a motorcycle, and that was the way I get the motorcycle. I had to go to therapy, but and I still been going. Right, I don't miss appointments. I think I've missed only one appointment, and I think that day was the day I fell in the store, so it was a legit miss.
Awesome. And I know, Rachel, you said that you are a counselor and you have a private practice, and I think that sometimes couples, and I want to say this, I think sometimes people believe that therapy has some type of stigma, and I think that's bad, or it makes it difficult, because it can really help us. It can really help us dig deeper. And if more of us are encouraged to do it, to seek counseling, to seek coaching, to seek therapy, some type of accountability to help us dig into certain things, it would help us a lot more. So I think that's awesome. And speaking from your profession, Rachel, what are some things that you think, as far as that affects relationships, but keeps people from, other than the stigma, keep people from reaching out to get that help, to get counseling or therapy?
Right. Well, let me also add, we both have our own individual therapists. So we both are doing our own work. And I think that's helped influence our relationship and our willingness to be vulnerable and open with one another. But to answer your question, I think outside of the stigma, there is, especially in the African-American community, and I'll say the minorities as a whole, there's this idea that kind of what happens in this house stays in this house. Anything outside these walls, nobody else needs to know. And while, that makes sense at the time, I think it also, instead of acting as like a shield, it can act as a barrier to getting the help you need, because there are some things that happen in our lives that we have to go outside of the family or outside of that unit we grew up in order to get perspective to get better.
Absolutely.
And so I think for some people going to counseling, that it is scary, because essentially, and I tell my clients this a lot, you're talking to a stranger, telling them your most, your deepest, darkest, most vulnerable secrets or whatever. And that's not easy to do. Right. And so I would encourage people to like start in a group setting, where you don't have to talk, right? Maybe you start with coaching, or maybe you start with talking with somebody that has professional credentials. Yes, you can talk to your friend, you can talk to your mama, you can talk to your cousin, and you need somebody with training and credentials to help give you perspective and not give you advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to help you heal.
Awesome. So if the two of you, Charles and Rachel, thinking about the work that you have done in your marriage or on yourself, thinking about the personal work you've done since you've been married, what piece of advice would you give to someone who would tell you that they are considering marriage?
I would think I would ask them, are you willing to essentially put in the same work in your marriage as you do your job? And what I mean by that is some of these professions we have to do CEUs, PDs, we got to continue to learn things.
Human education.
Right? So are you willing to do that with your marriage? Or are you willing to say, all right, let's learn the love languages. All right, let's talk to the pastor and get some counseling. Or shoot, let's look at this podcast and listen to that, see if we get some advice. Or are you willing to think outside the box, get creative, and really listen to one each other and grow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me would be, don't forget who you are, right? So remembering that your marriage is a choice. I think some people feel like they get married and they're obligated to this person. Now it's something I have to do. I think another thing that works for us is that we choose to be together. Like, we genuinely like each other. We choose this relationship. As a matter of fact, we talk a lot about, okay, well, if you decide you don't like me no more, just let me know, right? But we have that open dialogue and we talk to one another. So I would tell somebody, don't forget who you are and remember that it's a choice. Like, yes, you're married. Yes, it's a legally binding or whatever, agreement. But at the end of the day, you still have a choice. And choose love, like choose to be with that person.
Another thing I think I would offer advice, you got to go off of what you feel. Like, you can talk to other people, but you can't be having people saying, well, why you want to get married? There's nothing wrong with being married. If you feel that certain way and you and them and it's mutual, then go ahead and do it. And also think about, do you really want to be married or do you want a wedding? I knew I was going to marry her. I used to always tell my friends, I don't know if I ever told her this, I said, the woman that would marry me in the courthouse is the one I would marry. She married me in a courthouse. So when she told me she was willing to marry me in the courthouse, that was one of the things I was like, all right, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I was like, okay, cool. You don't want no wedding. You try to have this union and we trying to build something to grow together. So do you want that wedding or do you want marriage? Not the same thing. You can have you a prom and you can keep it moving,
I have a leadership podcast and I give knowledge bombs, man. That would have been a knowledge bomb
right there.
That's really good because you really said something and it makes me think. It's like, when people are getting together, are you preparing for a wedding or are you preparing for a marriage? And I love the way you just made that real plain. And I think that's something for the TMC family to even think about. If you're considering getting married, what are you excited about? Are you more excited about the wedding? Are you more excited about that dress and walking down the aisle and, impressing, your family? Or is it about the individual that you are in the relationship with getting ready to marry? What's the reason? What's motivating you? That's good, Charles. Really good.
That is. Yeah. That was a good one. Yeah. If you guys think about it, what are some key components you believe are necessary for a thriving marriage?
For me, the 3 components would be, number 1, honesty, right? And honesty, being honest with yourself. So like Charles said, what are your intentions? Like, what are your motivations? What are you truly there for, right? So number 1, being honest with yourself and being willing to have the hard topics, the hard discussions. The next one is communication, right? So again, along with being honest, be willing to talk the good, the bad, and the ugly. As you all know, marriage is fun and it's still work, right?
Absolutely.
But all work doesn't have to be hard work, but you still have to be willing to put in the energy and the motivation to show up every single day, not only for that person, but for yourself, right? And then the last component was remember who you are, right? I think that's another thing that's worked for us. We are individuals, we do very well, but then as a couple, we do very well. So never forgetting who you are.
To me, I would say that pretty much the same thing, so I won't re-echo those sentiments. But what I will say in addition to that is don't let it fester. And what I mean by that, if there's something going on, now granted, you might need to take that pause to think about it and gather yourself before you discuss it, right, to get emotions in check. But don't let it fester. And that's something I was personally guilty of. I hold on to things because, again, here I am being a man, I could deal with it. And I'm like, you know what? It's not a big issue. And maybe at the time it's not a big issue, but, we let it snowball, right? It just gets bigger and bigger. Then all of a sudden, now I'm bringing up stuff that don't have nothing to do with this because of that one little issue that I let fester and manifest to this big snowball.
Yeah, Charles, thank you for that. Thank you for that, man. I'm telling you, guys are really kicking some knowledge for the TMC family on today. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. A few minutes ago, we talked a little bit about, you talked about a challenge you guys faced when Charles was unemployed. So let's think about that. And maybe if you all wouldn't mind sharing a challenge that you faced in your marriage. Maybe you want to dig a little deeper into that one, but a challenge you faced in your marriage, how you navigated through that challenge to be able to help the TMC listeners.
I would say like communication. I think throughout our time together, that's why y'all keep hearing me say that. First, being very independent individuals and having our own viewpoints on things and never talking to the other person about, as Charles just explained, snowballs, right? And then you have like frustrations and, resentment or whatever. So communication was a big challenge that we had to learn how to break through, right? I had to learn how to be open and honest with my feelings, right? Number one, being able to identify what I was feeling and then being able to communicate what I was feeling and then being able to be willing to listen to his side of things and to hear from him too. And so I think that was a challenge that I want to say overcome because this is a work in progress, right? Now that we have the tools and we have the willingness to be able to listen to one another and talk to one another, we are much better than where we were. But that is a challenge that we've had that we worked through.
Right. I think what I did on my part to overcome, continue to strive to try to overcome that is engage in more active listening because that was the part with the communication. So what happens was she would say something, but I wouldn't follow up, but I would start working on it, right? Because that's the type of person I'm like, you tell me to do something, or if you just say something, and I get to put in wheels in motions. But I'm not communicating that with her. So we sitting down, then we realize we are on the same page, but I haven't let her know that. Because she needs to write things out. She want to see things like lined up, put it on paper. Me, I just want to talk about it, and that's good enough for me, right? Yeah. So trying to merge those two different styles together. There we go again, communication. Let's sit down, talk about it, do what we need to do for you, write it out. For me, I just hear it and we're good to go,
And I will say that was an epiphany moment for me in our relationship. Even just learning that learning style, right? That I am an organizer and I need to write it down. I have Post-its, I have everything. Him, it used to be really frustrating that he would just hear and he was like, I got it. And it was like nothing else. I'm like, you don't got it because you didn't write it down. But even learning that about one another, that he can hear things and just like that, he got it, really. And for me, he can't just tell me something. I know if I didn't write it down, it didn't happen.
That's awesome. And I keep hearing the two of you say something over and over and over as we continue to talk. You said continually working through this, continuing to grow, continuing to be better. And I think it's important. That is something that's important for everyone to take away from this conversation, that in a marriage, that in a relationship, for this, in order to thrive, you're continuing to grow. You're continuing to learn each other. You're continuing to become better. You're continuing to work on yourself, because we talked about you guys were friends already. We were friends already, but you continue to grow and do work on yourself, and even continuously learning the differences you have. Like one needs to write it down, the other one just needs to hear it, and being able to merge those things together to be able to balance or to have a harmony in your relationship, to understand that we're different, yet we're still on the same team. Yeah. What is the one thing you wish you knew before you got married?
The one thing I wish I knew about marriage before getting married is that I don't believe I've seen great examples of marriage, right? So I've seen marriages. I don't believe I've seen the best examples of it, right? So, like I said, here we go, be going in a relationship, leaning, I needed to do everything because that's based off the example that I saw, right? So I modeled the behavior that I saw. I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna take care of this. You don't have to worry about it. I got it, right? And finding out 7-8 years into the marriage, you know what? That really don't work. Because you know it's a whole lot easier when we work together. Just talk.
Absolutely.
Let the woman can't help you. Yes, you're the man. If she's the woman, let's work this thing out. So yes, that's what I wish.
That's good.
I would have known.
Yeah, that is good.
Really good.
And you're right. I do agree with that. We were talking beforehand, and he said we probably had the same thing because we didn't tell each other beforehand. One thing I wish I'd have known is that it's okay to like figure it out as you go along. Because I can tend to be like a perfectionist, and I want things done right now. I want everything to be perfect. I need to plan. I'm a planner. I need to know on this day, da da da. And so I think one thing I wish I would have known and been okay with is that it's okay to figure it out as you go along. Like you're not gonna have all the answers. You working with another human being, and people are just unpredictable, right? Even the ones you know for a while. And so being okay with not having all the answers. And I think some of that came from like we've seen marriages, but not really having models of like the healthiest marriages.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is fun. This is a fun question. If your marriage was a television show, what would be the name or the title of your marriage as a television show?
Making it work.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
You know, making it work. That's what we do. Yeah, we run into snags and run into bumps in the road. We get to the drawing board. Sometimes we gotta go back to that drawing board again, and you know, we keep going back till we make it work, right? So that's what we do.
Yeah,
I love that.
And that is what we do. Like I said earlier, we don't have all the answers, so we do have to make it work.
They're making it work on at 7 p.m. Central. That's good. I like that. This has been absolutely. This has been an awesome conversation with you all. I'm just anything that Rachel, Charles, anything that you would like to share with the TMC listeners, any last words, any piece of advice you would like to share before we go?
I think I would like to share it's okay to have one partner and get married. It's nothing wrong with that. I think sometimes, especially in our community, it can be seen as negative because, you know, when I told certain people that I was getting married, Dad, God, what you want to do that for? Why would I not want to do that? You know what I'm saying? What's wrong with that? Give me a good explanation. And some of the explanations you hear are not even PG-13. Like, all right, man, that's dumb. You know, that's not a good reason. That it's okay. But find the person that you want to be partners with. Find the person that you know. I would say, think of this. If that person told you that they about to leave, would you be like, all right, cool, I'll holler at you? If so, that's not the one, right? If you cool with them just rolling out, or you cool with just saying, you know what, this it, that's not it, right? Like at the first hand of any little issue or that, that's right not it.
I think for me, and this is going more towards your female listeners, like number one, trust your gut, right? If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right, and that's okay. With the caveat that make sure you're trusting your gut and not listening to like your past hurt. So it's definitely important to do your own work, you know, figure out where the hurt points are, heal from the trauma. And as you go through that process, definitely trust your gut. And like Charles said, make sure this is a person that you can know on the hardest of days that you still want to show up to bat for.
Wow. Rachel, you almost made me want to kick up a whole nother podcast.
So if someone wanted to connect with you all and what you are doing, where should they go?
Well, on me, go to social media. On Instagram, my counseling is Balanced and Enlightened Counseling, or bnecounseling.com. That's the best way, social media.
I actually put my leadership consultant on hold. So I'm writing a book called The Lowdown on Leadership, right? I think I got about 40 pages done. I took a break from it. But Charles McNeil Jr. at iCloud.com, CharlesMcNeil at iCloud.com. I'll be more than help anybody with their leadership needs, but they got to be open. right? You got to be open to different techniques or whatnot. So,
I forgot my email too. So my email is letstalk@bnecounseling.com.
Wow. Awesome. On behalf of the TMC community, we want to thank you all so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Thank y'all for having us.
Right, definitely. We appreciate it. No problem. Anytime.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each week when we upload a video. And if you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps us get the word out. And we want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders from all around the world every week.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship
from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.